Good day, everybody. This is Chris, the Ancient Scholar. I hope this video finds you all doing well. In this particular video, I'd want to do a quick little follow-up on a series of videos regarding my saga to find a platform that could replace my SIG P365X. So there we go. We are clear and safe. So this is to kind of complete that saga that I've been on. I've talked about in prior videos. I ended up going with a Canik MC9 Meti, ended up having some reliability issues with that, mainly the failure to go into battery and some issues surrounding that, which have improved substantially with a new recoil spring, but I still don't quite feel 100% confident in using that as a primary carry option. So I went ahead and purchased a Springfield Armory Hellcat a few months ago and outlined my struggles with that particular weapon. And following the last video I did on this topic, I didn't actually give up on the Springfield, but rather was able to link up with a local firearms instructor and spend a day doing individualized instruction, starting with the fundamentals, making sure I had a good grip, good trigger discipline, good use of trigger. We did dry fire drills, and then that progressed to the range. They have cameras set up. They were able to film me, work with me, and despite that, I really just wasn't able to make a good breakthrough on the Springfield Armory Hellcat. And one of the instructors just happened to have a different firearm, and they couldn't really figure out what I was doing wrong, because I was getting good grip, good sight picture. I wasn't anticipating the shots, etc., etc. And so one of the instructors had me fire one of their weapons and just fire it completely cold. This was a 10 yards, this torso-sized target at 10 yards. First time I've ever fired this firearm, and it was quite frankly, a complete life-changing moment for me. And I was able to fire as a 10-round group at 10 yards, more or less centered in the A zone where I was aiming, and it was an amazing experience and was the best feeling. It was a micro compact firearm that they were using, and it was the best feeling experience with a micro compact. It was one of the flattest shooting micro compact pistols I ever fired, and the trigger felt incredible, even better than the trigger on the Canik, which for all of its faults has a great out-of-the-box trigger system. And that firearm just so happened to be an FN Reflex. So following that experience, I went ahead and sold the Springfield Armory Hellcat and used that money to offset the cost of getting a new FN Reflex. So this is clear. It is the FN Reflex MRD version. This is not the Reflex XL, which is a newer, compact size offering. This is the micro compact FN Reflex. So it's got about a 3.3-inch barrel. It's a little over a 6-inch slide, about 4 inches high and about 1 inch thick. It is roughly, I would say, the same size as a SIG P365X that I have been carrying for the last few years as my primary carry weapon. And I would say they're roughly about the same size. The slide is just a little longer, and the barrel's just a little longer on the FN Reflex, but the SIG is just a little taller. They're both about the same thickness, only about 1 inch thick. So very comparable. The FN is also slightly lighter than the SIG, even without the optic that I have on the SIG currently. So it is roughly comparable. There are some really interesting things about the FN Reflex that I really quite like. First and foremost is the trigger. This is one of the best out of the box, actually the best out of the box trigger that I have ever experienced on a micro compact 9mm platform. And so the trigger is interesting in that it does not have a dingus, their typical dingus safety, but it kind of has two components to it. So you have this outer part, which is on a spring, and so you can see I push on it and I let up, and it's a little spring loaded. And so what this does is this acts as a kind of inertial safety mechanism to help make this particular firearm drop safe. So while it's not your typical dingus, it still does essentially the same thing, at least as far as its drop safety profile is concerned. So you push through that, and then you hit a very well-defined wall, and then it's only about a 4-pound trigger, and it feels incredible. There's a wall, there's no slop or creep. A lot of the triggers on most of the micro compact firearms that I've fired, you'll hit a wall, and then you'll have to push through that wall, and you can see my fingers moving, and there's a little bit of creep, and then it fires. Nice tactile short reset, however, but you've got to pull through a few millimeters of creep, and so it feels kind of spongy, and that's just kind of the typical experience that you get on a lot of the striker fired platforms. However, what's unique about the FN Reflex is that it is not striker fired, but rather it has an internal hammer. So it's an internal hammer fired weapon. In fact, it's a single action only system, which means that the trigger feels very different. It is a very light trigger. It's only about a 4-pound pull. So that might be a bit off-putting to some individuals who rely on a heavier trigger to feel safe carrying a weapon. My philosophy of use is when I carry a weapon, the trigger and trigger guard is fully encapsulated by a holster or some analogous safety device. And I do a lot of off-body carry in fanny packs, and I do have special holsters set up just for those bags to where I fully encase the trigger. And so I don't have any issues carrying a weapon with a trigger that is a bit on the lighter side compared to some of the contemporary offerings. I rather like the feel of this trigger. It actually is amazing, particularly when compared to something like the Hellcat, which the trigger on my Hellcat was about 9.5 to 10 pounds. So a very robust trigger. And the recoil on the Hellcat was pretty substantial. Now, in general, you are going to have a little more recoil on the micro compact platforms just because they're smaller, there's less mass, and so you're going to have a bit more felt recoil. That said, the recoil impulse is very flat on the Reflex. This is one of the flattest shooting micro compacts. This is certainly on par, maybe not a little better, a little flatter shooting than the P365X. So that's one thing I really enjoy. The trigger feels amazing. In addition to that, the slide is incredibly easy to manipulate. You can see 2 fingers, I can manipulate the slide. It is just incredibly easy to manipulate and pull. So if you're maybe older, you don't have a lot of grip strength, maybe you have arthritic hands, this would be a great option for you because this is so smooth and easy to manipulate. Another thing that I like about this is the sights. It comes with steel sights as opposed to some of the weapon platforms that have plastic sights out of the box, like Glock. These are steel sights, maybe hard to see. The front sight has a bright orange dot that's very easy to pick up. And then it also has a tritium insert. And so the front sight is going to act as a night sight. The rear sights are kind of a classic white dot with some rounded off metal. These are not night sights, however, it's just the front sight. So I would say that the X-ray sights on the SIG are maybe a little better because it's front and rear, but it's still nice. And I certainly, in daylight, have a preference to that bright orange sight that's really easy to pick up. This particular FN Reflex is the MRD, or the micro red dot version. So you can see I've got a plate that fits the K and the RMS-C footprints. So those are pretty standard micro red dot offerings for these type of micro compact pistols. See here, the stippling is really aggressive. So you can see this really aggressive stippling makes it easy to get a good, full, and comfortable grip. The SIG, you can see, has little less aggressive grip. So I would say that, the ergonomics are pretty good on this. It's just not the stippling isn't super aggressive, so this can get slick, particularly if your hands get sweaty, whereas you get really good grip on this. So yeah, I do like that. And there's even some additional grip up here as well. It does not have the grip on the lower part of the slide here like you see with the Hellcat. However, it would be nice if maybe they had a version that had some, because you could just kind of naturally index your finger on that, but that's a fairly minor thing. I do like the magazine release. It's a big metal magazine release. It's very easy to manipulate. It's actually, I find it far easier to manipulate than the smaller magazine release on the 365. All right, as far as field stripping goes, very easy to field strip the FN Reflex. You just lock it back. This lever flips up, the takedown lever flips up, and then you slide the slide off. You do not have to pull the trigger to remove the slide, so that's maybe a bit of added safety. So I really enjoy that as well. So far, my overall experience with the FN Reflex has been great. I have not fired a whole lot through the FN Reflex yet, so I want to hold off on making any conclusions. And one of the reasons I decided not to go with the FN Reflex, or I was actually considering this as the firearm I was going to buy, was between this and the Hellcat, was a lot of the reports around reliability issues that I was seeing, and I did not want to get myself into another situation where I was dealing with what I dealt with the Canic, and this is a bit more expensive than the Canic. So I ended up going with the Hellcat just because the reliability seemed better with the Hellcat. Now the FN Reflex has been around for, what, 2-3 years now, so I'm hoping the initial issues that it had have kind of been worked out, and we'll see what happens in the long term. I'm going to put several hundred rounds through this before I really start to arrive at any kind of anything that's conclusory. At this point, I do not have a red dot mounted, and I'm not sure if I will mount a red dot or not. One of the things I like about this is that the controls are fairly flat, and it lends itself well to concealed carry, and it doesn't snag as much as some other systems. One of the things that I've had to do with the 365, you can see here, I had to add an aligned tactical takedown lever so I could get a better grip on this. And so what that does is that comes out a little bit, and it does make it more likely that this weapon could snag. And of course, the optic adds some additional bulk and potential snag to it as well, whereas the FN Reflex is a little less likely to snag up on stuff. So I think it's a great little deep concealment option. So that's kind of these are kind of my initial impressions with the FN Reflex. I'm hoping that I've finally found a good platform that I can use as my primary everyday carry. And again, this whole saga has been in an effort to find something that I can use to more or less replace the P365, just because of some of the issues that SIG has had, and perhaps more than the purported issues are the pretty lackluster ways in which SIG has responded. That has really put a lot of people off, myself included. So I'm really hoping that I can support FN and support this platform. So we shall see what the future holds. So yeah, that's my initial impression. And yeah, we'll see we'll see how things go over the next several hundred rounds. We've got a tropical storm that has moved in through the Gulf and is dumping moisture on us currently, so I won't be able to get out and do a whole lot of shooting until the weather stabilizes a little better. So we'll see how it goes. But anyway, hopefully you all found this video to be interesting. As always, I hope you all are doing well, staying safe, and we'll see you in the next video.